Since 1983, FAME has helped business and education work for Maine. Contact the Authority, the Finance Authority of Maine. You're watching Mainebiz Sunday, Maine's business news source.
To discuss the ins and outs of business financing and the often intimidating world of venture capital, we have a panel of experts with us here today. Michael Gurau, founder of Clear Venture Partners and a columnist for Mainebiz. Robert Phelps, CEO of Bar Harbor Biotechnology, which has attracted venture capital. And Beth Bordowitz, CEO of the Finance Authority of Maine. Welcome to all of you. We all look like venture capital people, got our dark suits on. That's great. I like that. Every week we talk on the show with businesses, and we always say, there are three things that the businesses are interested in are access to capital, access to markets, and access to those skilled and affordable workers. If you got a good idea and you got those three things, you're probably going to make some money. So let's talk about the capital part, because that's really a tough issue right now. Maybe people certainly perceive it as something that there's a huge gap out there. So Beth, I want to start with you and just tell us about that. Is there a capital gap? And if so, has it been broadened, maybe even a wider gap because of the economy right now?
I think there's a perception of a capital gap. I know for sure that the banks in Maine have money to lend. And so if you're looking for a traditional bank loan, that type of bank financing, it's available. But what's become very hard are some of the criteria to get loans that banks look at have fallen for a lot of businesses and individuals. So just if prior to this economic downturn you had a higher credit score or your collateral was worth more, you could have gotten a loan. But now with the decreased values, people are finding it harder to get credit in some ways. But I can tell you that we're really busy. So that means businesses are getting loans because they're coming to us and they're getting it, and the banks are using us. And we know that the SBA in Maine has increased tremendously over the past 2 years.
Is that part of the formula then too, that banks are looking for other partners for those loans, those other kind of bridge partners or guarantors, those kinds of things, like SBA?
I think absolutely.
Okay.
They're looking at all of those resources available, and they're actually sending their customers to us and to the SBA specifically in situations where they can't be helpful. But I will say that we know that the banks in Maine are working with their existing clients. So if you're an existing client, you have a good relationship with the bank, their first goal is going to be to find a way to work with you and fulfill your needs. I think it's a little harder if you're working to establish a relationship and you have a new business. And finding the means without a track record right now, I think, is a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, and that's the one I want to follow up on with you, Robert, is, okay, great. Now, let's hear somebody from out there in the trenches. Oh, yeah, what's it like out there for business, especially startup businesses and those that are expanding? They're really hitting that stride and they're ready to expand. Is the money there, and how difficult is it? What's really happening?
Yeah, it's I think being post-revenue is definitely beneficial. We've been very fortunate. We got our first products out before the recession really set in. Okay. With that, we actually diversified quite a bit in the capital that we received. Some from VC, some from Maine institutions, and a line of credit with the first actually, which was really beneficial and helped us through thin times. Mm-hmm. So having that diversity of capital actually helped us quite a bit.
So is that your recommendation to other kind of businesses in startup phase and getting to that next phase is diversify?
Absolutely. If you can put your eggs in multiple baskets, especially going into a very unsteady economic conditions going forward, I definitely recommend that. Yeah.
Okay. Michael, I'm going to turn to you, and let's just have that broad picture question too about just what are the sectors that are growing out there, or expected to grow in Maine, and I would assume then that they're the ones that are going to be looking for more of that capital.
Well, Beth differentiated with talking about banking as opposed to early stage capital. Right. And I think if you ask the question, what sectors are banks interested in, it would be a different answer than venture
capital. That's why I was asking the question, because it's about risk averse. I mean, those things that are banks are going to be certainly more conservative. So
right. And so the banks, and as Robert said, the revenue generating companies have a different experience, and you pick different sectors. In the early stage venture capital world, technology sectors like clean tech, which is a meta category that includes renewables and smart grid and water treatment technologies, is a very hot category in the Boston market, and you'll see a lot of interest from the Boston market. Again, we have very limited capital sources here on the venture capital side, but technology generally is still strong in the web-based sector, software, clean tech. And there's a lot of material there in which Maine can play. In renewables, you have areas like biomass. We have a lot of forests here in Maine, and you would think that should be a growth category, though I don't know that biomass is a hot venture capital category. It is a category in which Maine has assets.
Are banks interested in that? Would they be interested in that?
I can't speak to that. I'm not a bank. I think to the extent they have revenue and they can generate cash flow that can service debt. I mean, the key is that revenue can translate to earnings, which can support debt. If you can't support debt, banks have a hard time playing the role of venture capitalists.
Right. I want to break in and just give us, let's move on to venture capital. Let's talk more about that. Give us the quick VC 101. Tell us about what it is, first of all, real briefly, and kind of what the sources are in
Okay, so the venture capital industry it has historically been about a $30 billion industry nationally, centered in 5 cities in this country. 5 cities amount to about 80% of the capital in this country. So, and those are Boston, New York, Palo Alto, and so
Bangor.
on. And Bangor, Maine, of course. So the vast majority of money flows into urban centers, not rural communities, rural states like Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont. Maine has a couple of funds. Again, I've listed them for you in the past. Their CEI has 2 funds, CEI Community Ventures, which I've run since 2000, CEI Ventures, run by Nat Henshaw, Small Enterprise Growth Fund, which is a state-based venture capital fund which Beth can speak to, run by John Burns. A couple of others who are not really investing in Maine but based in Maine, Masthead Venture Partners, North Atlantic Capital, both invest out of Maine but really invest outside the state. Okay. And so the industry is about investing in companies trading equity for ownership, sitting on boards of directors, hoping that you get exponential growth that I trust Robert is delivering for the state. And ultimately, you look to realize value over a 4 to 7 year period after investment through a sale of the company, through a public offering, which is far less likely to happen. I think public offerings account for maybe 10%. And so the game is about investing for high growth. If things don't work out, there's a high failure rate. If things do work out, the wins make up for the losses.
Okay. So, Robert, I want to turn to you then. Tell me, what are the pros and cons of using VC capital? Equity for ownership, they're always looking for that exit. So tell me more about that.
Yeah, there's obviously goods and bads with VC. Right off the bat, the pros with VC are actually their Rolodex and their contact information. Obviously the money, but having their ability, their expertise to give us guidance, sitting on a board, taking a company that may be a garage operation or people that are just starting up into that next stage. It's a fantastic experience to work with somebody that's a good team. We've been very fortunate with Borealis Ventures that they've given great guidance. Working with John Burns and the Small Enterprise Growth Fund and even MTI have been fantastic in regards to working with capital and having a contribution to the board and board decisions for the company.
Do you feel that they have how involved are they in your process? How involved are they in your business?
It depends really on the investor. Borealis Ventures is really on a very integrated approach with us. We work very closely with them, whereas MTI will work in lockstep with Small Enterprise Growth Fund, take their cues really from kind of a top-down approach from the board. So it depends. From a cons aspect, obviously, we've been pretty fortunate with our investors not have rapacious investors that can be overbearing. And you hear of them.
I do indeed, and we're going to talk more about that.
We do have that out there. So
I'm going to wrap this segment right here. We're going to come back and we're going to talk more about that, and we're talking more about how companies can receive venture capital in Maine and stay in Maine, we hope, and then also some of the political climate around just investment in business in general. So stick with us. We'll be right back. Stay with us. We'll be right back to continue the discussion of venture capital and business financing in Maine.
Mainebiz Sunday is brought to you by Bangor Savings Bank, where you can enjoy free ATMs worldwide.